Live. Welcome to Digital Asset News. My name is Rob, and today, a couple of special guests as we start to go into the new year. Not financial advice live. We've got Ben from Into the Cryptoverse and Guy from Coin Bureau. Gentlemen, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Rob.
Yeah, this is good times. So, first of all, we're doing pretty good, right? We're in the green. I can't believe it, and I think we're teetering on that 1 trillion market cap, maybe 922 billion. So the questions that we have today are very simple. What's your asset allocation right now? Are you buying or are you just waiting on the sidelines? And then what indicators are you looking at to determine this allocation to crypto? Also, what should everyone mentally prepare for in 2023? Are we going to be sideways for a while? Is it going to be a massive dips? Or are we going to see all-time highs? Personally, I don't think that's even remotely possible. And then second to last, there's some things that are out of our control. We're going to talk about the CPI data, some macro, some news updates, and the thoughts on Avalanche partnering up with Amazon and Nexo just about an hour ago being raided by Bulgarian police. And then lastly, will the rise of artificial intelligence affect crypto, and are you using it? And then we'll do a little Q&A. So first things first, gentlemen, of course, welcome to the show. Now, if you don't know, Ben's got a great channel. I watch it all the time. I also steal everything from his website, Into the Cryptoverse. Great data points. You can find the link in the description. And Guy's got two channels, one Coin Bureau and then one Coin Bureau Clips. So just check those out. Links are in the description. So first things first, gents, asset allocation. I kept getting this question to me, and everybody knows where I stand. I'll talk about that later. But are you buying right now, or is cash still king and you have things on the sidelines? So Ben, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to my man Guy for the follow-up.
Great question. So yeah, in 2022, of course, I had the very strong conviction that cash was king. The main things I've bought over the last like 6 to 12 months were just really boring things, right? Like CDs, right? Like certificates of deposit, trying to earn like just yield in the short term on just your cash. If inflation is really high, then you want to be earning yield somewhere just to help minimize the damage. In terms of crypto, I am a very stubborn person when it comes to the altcoin market. I have Bitcoin, right? I've bought some Bitcoin here and there over the last half year or so. I mean, I still think Bitcoin is going to eventually lead the next bull market, but I still remain somewhat stubborn on the altcoin market, mainly because I still see the dominance of Bitcoin trending higher. And I mean, this is one of those things where if you look at it, including stable coins, you might argue that it's been sort of like scraping the lows since May of 2021. But if you exclude stable coins, I mean, it's been in an uptrend since May of 2021. It continues to go higher. And so the reason why I remain somewhat stubborn on the altcoin market is because it is taking on a higher risk than you are with Bitcoin, right? So, a lot of these altcoins, as we know, I mean, look, they can give you some solid gains.
True.
Just yesterday, we saw Avalanche go up like 25% after the announcement. I know we're going to talk about that later, but it still doesn't change the fact that they have been macro bleeding against Bitcoin for a long time, right? And that's the thing. Like that's the thing we have to contend with is if you buy an altcoin, you are inherently taking on more risk than if you buy Bitcoin. And a lot of altcoins will unfortunately not go to all-time highs. Now, some of them will. Right? There were good examples from last cycle. We know Ethereum went to a new all-time high. I don't really consider ETH an alt. I consider it a blue chip like Bitcoin. But you had Cardano going to a new all-time high last cycle, and some other ones, right? Like BNB went to an all-time high. So some altcoins have gone to new all-time highs, and it's good if you can find those. But there's a lot of relics from prior cycles that don't, right? And you can go back to 2013 cycle, the 2017 cycle. They're just sort of like relics of a past cycle, and they won't necessarily go to new all-time highs. So for me right now, I still do have a healthy cash position. I'm not as aggressively stacking cash as I was last year because I do recognize that 2023 is likely going to be the year of opportunity, to get positions in the market before 2024, 2025 timeframe, right? So my general expectations of this year are, and I actually did a video on this somewhat recently, is if you look at like 2015 and you look at 2019 for Bitcoin, they both had upside and downside, right? So in both of those years, we went up, we went down. So in 2015, we went down first, and then for the first half of the year, we're at near the bottom for the first half, and then the second half we went up. 2019 was the opposite, right? We went up, we sort of dipped down a little bit, then we went up, and then we faded that rally for the second half of the year. So my general expectations are that the year will be choppy. It'll be probably somewhat sideways for the most part, but it doesn't mean you can't deviate to the upside and the downside, right? I mean, we've seen that in 2015 and 2019. So I don't think this year is going to be as bad as 2022. But I used to think this was going to be a boring year, just like a relatively boring year. But I'm actually kind of the opinion that while it might ultimately be remembered as a sideways year with deviations to the upside and the downside, I don't think it's going to be boring. I think the fascination that we all still have with CPI and FOMC meetings and what's the Fed doing and also the potential implications of a recession. I think that's going to keep us on our toes this year, and it's probably not going to really make for a boring year, but probably more of a sideways year with deviations to the upside and the downside. So long story short, the way I'm playing it right now is sort of a continuation of last year, but not as heavy, not as determined to stack more cash. I have a healthy cash position, sort of keeping it around those same levels that it's at, have some Bitcoin, and then I'm just waiting for, I'm getting old, I'm growing old waiting for it, right? But I'm biding my time for the dominance of Bitcoin to go up. And then once it goes up, I think altcoins will make more sense. And I mean, not only in terms of their USD valuations, but probably more so their Bitcoin valuations. Remember in 2018, 2019, it took about 6 to 10 months for a lot of altcoins to bottom on their Bitcoin pairs after Bitcoin bottomed on its USD pair.
Right. So just to be sure that what I heard you right was this: you're on the sidelines, you're waiting for things to happen, but you are not deploying any cash. You're sitting there with your Scrooge McDuck, just monstrous mounds of cash waiting to strike. Is that what it is?
With regards to the altcoin market, I do have a position in Bitcoin. I have a position in Ethereum too, but it's not a new position. It's just an old position that's a relatively small position compared to Bitcoin. So basically, I'm sitting on the sidelines for them, with regards to the altcoin market. But with regards to Bitcoin, I feel like I have to have some type of a position there because you never really know what's going to happen. I mean, look at what happened in 2019, right? It rallied up 4x before it then faded for the second half of the year. So Bitcoin I think it's a good hedge, right? It's a way to have one foot into the crypto market,
right,
but not to have both feet in, right? So then if Bitcoin ends up dropping, which remains a risk, right? If we get into a recession or something, Bitcoin drops, the altcoin market's probably going to drop a lot harder. And so that's sort of how I hedge my bet there.
Gotcha. Okay. So a little bit, but mostly the blue chips, not new positions. Gotcha. Guy, my man, same question for you. So what are we looking at here? Are you sitting on the sidelines as well, or are you dipping in?
I'm certainly going to be looking for, I think, opportunities to kind of dip in later in the year. For me, I really want to see an improvement, certainly in the macro side of things, above all else, really. And I think the Fed is going to drive that 100% of the way. So I guess you could say that I'll be kind of waiting on what the Fed says, on what the Fed does with regards to inflation. When it decides to pause, and if we're going to see, it's some sort of indication of how long they're going to keep rates, at that terminal rate.
Right.
So yeah, and I mean, I agree with Ben. In terms of the sort of year that we're going to have, it's not going to be boring. I think it's going to be slightly dull in terms of price action for sort of long periods of time, and then we'll probably get something sort of similar like we've seen today to the upside and to the downside as well. When we get some bits of good or bad news happening and the market kind of gets a little overexcited and everyone thinks, a lot of people think that the bull market suddenly come back, and so we'll see pumps and we'll see dumps along the way. I think what's going to be really interesting from a crypto perspective, because Ben's obviously touched on what we can expect, from a macro side, and again, it's those Fed meetings, isn't it? It's what Jerome and co say and do. But I think as well, just kind of keeping track of all the development going on, keeping track of stories like this one that we're going to discuss a bit later about Avalanche. These announcements coming out, these announcements of development and further adoption and further integration with Web 2 companies, with the wider economy, if you like. And I think that's going to be a really kind of fun thing to keep tabs on, because we're going to be able to see this development happening. We're going to know that the market is maturing, that projects are maturing and getting better, but all the time that's not, I think, going to be really reflected in prices at all. I think, as I say, we'll see a lot of sideways action for a lot of the year. I kind of feel that I'm kind of looking towards the end of the year, towards maybe Q3, Q4, to see some sort of uptick. I would hope that that we've got tangible signs that inflation really is being squashed. Although, of course, the Fed isn't going to suddenly pivot on that. The Fed is going to keep rates high until it is completely confident that it's got inflation under control. And again, I think we'll probably see people getting excited about a possible pivot, and then that pivot not materializing, and the market will pump and then dump, et cetera, et cetera. But what I really want to see is a tangible improvement in the macro outlook. So like I was talking about from the Fed, I'd also like to see some good news from the wider world, really. I'm really interested to see how this opening up of China plays out, because I think that's going to be a fascinating thing to see. Obviously, the implications for things like supply chains. Is global trade going to really get moving again, or is China going to are we going to get a new variant or something like that? I think that's something that we can't discount. And at the same time, things like the war in Ukraine, if we see a resolution to that, or if we see a chance of that being resolved. And of course, the WHO, I think the WHO are meeting towards the end of this month. And that will be, I think, interesting to see, what's going to be their take on where we are. I'm guessing they're going to say we're still in a pandemic. I don't think they're going to declare that over because of the situation in China. But yeah, things like that I really want to see an improvement in macro before I start really dipping my toes in the market again. And until then, I'm like Ben. I'm very top heavy BTC, and particularly ETH. Actually, I've got ETH is my largest single allocation, and I'll be looking to add to those certainly, and certainly not looking to sell them at any point.
Gotcha. So just to be sure, you're not adding anything in right now, or you are looking to add in just nothing?
Just nothing. No, I'm kind of happy with where I am. I've got a big allocation in stables, and that is just sitting there, staying nice and dry. And I'm just kind of watching it go along with wonder and fascination as always.
See, Guy, Ben, these are great responses from people who delve into it big time. Like, that was a pretty great explanation. So thanks. Mine is a little bit different. I disagree with both of you. And I because I'm stubborn and I can't help it. And the thing is, I always look at it. I'm like, I know the what you just said, Guy, and what Ben just talked about as far as the macro events, the things that are going on in crypto. I know it, and it makes sense. I certainly don't think that we've hit the bottom. I still think we have a little ways to go. If you look from 2013 to 15, that was an 85% drop. 2017, 2018, it was an 84% drop. The biggest drop we had so far is 77%. I still think we go down to 10K or 12K Bitcoin. Having said all that, how many times have I heard, or we have heard, that it's a definite thing, it's going to happen, we're going to go through this recession, it's going to be awful? True. So I'm 90+% sure, but there's always this thing in my head that says, Rob, you're not that smart. You're going to have to hedge your bet. So I just do a little bit of dollar cost averaging, like I call it. This is micro DCA. I still get a little Bitcoin every day, a little Ethereum every couple of days, and some alts once a week, but it's not that much. So these are just the things, and like the days that we have a green day, it works out okay. So that was the very first question. Ben, what do you got?
Rob, they say the pessimists sound smart, but the bulls get rich, right? Like over the long haul, your strategy will probably work out very, very well, even if we go down, right? And you'll probably sleep better by having allocations and projects that you like than worrying about if they're going to constantly leave without you,
This is true, but I will say there is one caveat to that. And we took a look at just dollar cost averaging in 1 year after the all-time highs in 2014, 2018, and 2022. And they're not the great years to invest into. If I would have just waited for what I call the reset year, which is 2 years after the all-time high, which would have been 2015, 2019, and now 2023, I think I would have done better, but I'm just too damn stubborn. And that's where we go from. But thanks.
Yeah, I mean, waiting at least 1 year is at least like a good start, just get through the bear market year first, right? And then
Exactly.